it's another day and another episode of Fed Ninjas. And today we have the pleasure of having Craig Taylor with us. Craig Taylor is the CEO and co-founder of CyberHoot. Now, first of all, Craig, that's really one of the coolest names I've ever heard.
Oh,
And
thank you.
before we get into it, what does CyberHoot do? We talked a little bit about that, but what do you folks do over there?
We teach cyber literacy skills, plain and simple, but we do so in a way that is fun, engaging, it's gamified, it's a positive reinforcement approach. Too many times, if you look across the industry of cyber literacy and cyber education, you see a shock collar negative reinforcement approach that punishes just the bad behaviors. But that doesn't teach the good behaviors, and that's what we do. We teach the proper response to phishing emails and why you need password hygiene and all the other parts of the threat models, the threats that we face. So we do it in a positive, educational, and minimal approach.
Yep, sounded like we had something coming in from Eric over there, but that's okay. Hey, but what I love about that, Craig, is my background again is learning and development, organizational development. So when I hear things like that, it really is cool. When you have the shot collar approach, it's pretty funny because it's by compliance versus, hey, I really am engaged in this. And so it's good to hear that there's someone out there that is providing some type of education that is truly engaged and really is committed to learning in a space that is typically probably more shock and collar. And
Yeah,
how did you come about that? Because that's a hard trend to buck when you're in a teaching realm.
you're absolutely right. So to answer that, Maurice, let me go back 30 years to my university education. It wasn't in computer science. It wasn't in cybersecurity because that didn't exist 30 years ago. That's giving you a hint at how old I am. It was in psychology. I studied things like operant conditioning, where you can train an animal. Let's use a dog as an example. You can train a dog with a shock collar, and maybe they won't go near the edge of the property because they know they'll get shocked until there's a squirrel, a rabbit, or God forbid, a skunk across the road, that dog's gonna, all bets are off. They're going for it, right?
Yep.
And they're gonna come back stinking to high heaven. Humans are the same way. You don't want to punish them for bad behaviors because they don't know what the good behaviors they should be doing are.
Mhm.
If you remember, I don't know if anybody would know this analogy, but the winner of, I think, last year or the year before's America's Got Talent was a dog named Hurricane
Mm,
and his trainer. And all throughout their amazing performance, the dog was being fed treats, right?
yeah.
Treats in the mouth. And the dog was looking at the trainer. Is it treat time? Do I get a treat? People want to be treated with positive reinforcement. Here's the things you should be doing, and I'll give you rewards for it. So that's based on the psychological approach. But as you well know, cybersecurity is an emerging industry. It's only been around for 30 years, maybe a little longer. It's very focused on stopping bad behaviors,
Yeah.
which doesn't work for dogs crossing roads, and it doesn't work for employees that get a really nice fish and oh, I have to click
Yeah.
and I respond, and then trouble ensues, right? So we take the positive approach. I like to say in this industry, there needs to be more carrot and less stick. We need to teach people how to fish as one example. It's the number one way companies are breached, right? Teach them how to fish, feed them for a lifetime.
Yeah.
If you feed them a fake email today, you might stop them from clicking today. You might not,
Yeah.
but it's not going to work tomorrow or next week.
Yeah. Yep. Go ahead, Eric.
This is super interesting. So, Craig, first, thank you for developing a platform like this because my experience is that you're put into phishing jail if you click a phishing link and you have to take
Fishing
retraining, and
jail.
everybody hates it. And so they're
It's
like,
true.
hey, do you want to go to lunch with us? No, I got to take my fishing training at
Do
school
not
today.
pass go. Don't get lunch. You have to go do your 45-minute video, which truthfully, what happens then, right? Everybody's out of the office. I press go on my video, go grab my lunch, come back at the end. I've learned nothing. I've taught nothing. And I try to work my way through the questionnaire. It doesn't
Yeah.
work.
So, what type of incentives? I guess I'm thinking about this too, almost like Pavlov's dog with a bell, and then that it's going to get some food, and so it has a positive reinforcement. And so, some of the episodes before we talked about that the employees are the front line of defense because if their account gets phished, then an attacker is able to use that account and then gain privileges and then be able to get into where the data is and exfiltrate data. And hopefully for the attacker, they can do it unknowingly for as long as possible. And so really that front line of defense is so important. And for the users to have this positive reinforcement is big. Now, let me ask you, how do they also connect the dots? For incentives, can an employer, could they give out maybe gift cards or something like that? Or is there some additional training that really shows them like, here's really the attack path analysis type of situation if your account gets if it gets phished? A lot of users don't understand like, oh, I lost my credentials, I'll just reset them. So
Mm.
I guess there's a two-part question. What do they get for it? Can the employers offer them something like, hey, you've got 20 credits for doing the right thing, turning in a phishing email or not clicking on this? And also beyond that, is there some sort of a map that shows them here's exactly what happens if your account gets phished?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for that. So, Eric, the answer is two parts. So, first of all, let me answer how employers can go about rewarding employees. The first thing to do as an employer is dead simple. Stop punishing them. Don't do no notice phish testing, which leads to failures and punishment, right? That's removing a negative stimulus, and it then has to be replaced with a positive stimulus, which is a notification you have a phishing assignment to take. That's the first step, is removing all negatives and adding positives. In the positive side of things, when you're doing a phishing simulation, similar to what we do at CyberHoot, is we present the user with an actual email that they must work their way through to answer the question, is this safe, on 6 or 7 components of an email. So if you, and by the way, it's more realistic than anything you can send through email to the inboxes, because we can use in a simulation typo squatted domain names. Hackers do not email you from Microsoft with a domain name of Hackers Are Us, right? Something predictable and noticeable, right? But they send you something where the M in Microsoft is an R and an N that they've managed to register at some remote domain provider over in somewhere else in the world, and they get it for a week until someone reports it as spam, and then it's taken down. But during that time, people who have been used to Hackers Are Us phishing attack emails and, oh, I'm pretty hot stuff, I know how to spot this stuff, go, that's Microsoft, click, and then all bets are off. So you have to use realistic examples that teach people what they need to know, walking them through the 6 or 7 parts of a phishing puzzle. So that would be the sender, clearly articulating and showing typo squatted domain names. We get a lot of people fail our phishing test on the first attempt because they see Netflix with a missing I. There's no I in Netflix. And they're like, that's Netflix. I promise you, I said it was safe and it was Netflix. How can I have failed this? And they go back and we show them exactly. You didn't notice there was an I missing in Netflix. That's how good hackers are. And
Yep.
that's what you need to know, right? Then there's the subject. Is there artificial urgency? Because psychologists, hackers, security researchers all know if you react to something instead of respond, you're going to make way more mistakes. So they throw in urgency and emotionality into the subject line or the body of the message. So we teach, watch out for urgency, emotionality, something too good to be true.
Yep.
The greeting. Every vendor, I was on listening to another, is it Dale Carnegie? He says, people like the sound of their own voice better than anything else in the world. Vendors know this, and hackers are sometimes lazy. They don't put your name in there. Hey, dear Eric or Maurice, here's your special coupon for 50% off Amazon purchase. They don't do that. They say, dear valued customer. So a generic greeting is guaranteed to be suspicious. We teach that. Spelling, punctuation, and grammar, although ChatGPT or its replacement in hacker circles of Fraud GPT and some other GPTs that allow you to do spear phishing, will eliminate most languages, but grammar and punctuation and spelling. However, because foreign countries and different language people of the world are translating into English,
Yeah.
it doesn't quite always get the cultural norms. So you get this kind of like Yoda-like language construction that is technically correct, but it's not quite the same as what we would say on our conversation today. So there's things like that you can watch for. links to external websites. We teach about bit.ly links or shortened URLs that hide the ultimate destination, or maybe a QR code that says, here, get your coupon here. It's too long to type, so just scan this. We walked you through that. And then of course, attachments. If you give people the 6 or 7 pieces of the puzzle of phishing and you put it together in a picture, like that puzzle's done, guess what? You have a crystal clear picture of what phishing is, and you can apply it as a prototype for all your emails, personally and professionally. And suddenly you become more confident, secure, and what about efficient? How much time is lost with people going, oh my God, I want to click, I can't click, I want to click, but I don't want to disappoint the CEO who wants me to buy gift cards. I'm brand new here. Shoot, what am I going to do? Hey, John, does this look safe? I don't know what to do. How much time is lost with people stressing and freaking out and having anxiety and panic attacks over an email that could just easily, it's from outside, you dummy. It's not from inside and our CEO. Just delete it and move on. But no one knows these things.
I
So,
like how you just caught yourself right there.
Yeah.
so I don't know
It's
if I answered your
interesting though
question.
too, because
Sorry, that becomes the positive side of it anyways.
yeah.
And then I think there was a second part about the kill chain and all that stuff. Understanding that the loss of a password and a username is not just resetting that account. What can happen, let's say it's a CFO of a company and you do large wire transfers for payment of a construction company. You didn't tell anybody because you recovered your account really quickly. But in that 3 or 4 hour window, the hackers got into your email. They looked at your last wire conversation transfers because they automatically export all the email addresses you've ever emailed. And then they look for wire transfers that are in process. And then they register a domain name such as, what's your domain name? We just put an S on the end and start the conversation with your payers on the far side of that conversation for wires on the S domain. And you then in that side, you write rules and filters to not allow any communication with that payer ever, like now. So the CFO's knowing, oh, we're going to get paid this week. The remote end says, the hacker sends an email to the remote and say, oh, our bank's under audit and we can't really use our Bank of America account. We need to use this other account. Here's the wiring instructions. And knows your communication style, knows the participants. The only thing missing is anyone in your company having that email. And guess what happens? Whatever that wire transfer amount now gets sent somewhere else in the world, never, ever again to be recovered.
Yep.
Can be
Wow.
$50,000, 500,000, can be $1 million. Gone. That's the damage from a single business email compromise. I personally have investigated 3 to 5 of those in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And here's the statistic you all need to know listening to this. The third largest economy in the world last year was cybercrime after the US and China. More money was generated and raised in cybercrime across the world in aggregate than only the third largest economy of the world.
Craig,
So
I'm
it's working.
really glad that you have that psychology background because you do understand how they play upon those emotions in that realm. Matter of fact, the first thing that came into mind, there was a commercial with a Jason Statham movie called The Beekeeper, and it was a
I
victim
love
of
that movie.
cybersecurity, and they feed on those emotions, especially if you look at the generational context. When you have beyond baby boomers, even some Gen Xers that weren't raised in this stuff to recognize those things, it becomes a vital part of the education. It goes, I do digress because I go back to something that we were talking about a little bit earlier when you brought up the psychological factor of it, because before it was easy in organizations to make mistakes because you remember the study called the Hawthorne
Actually,
effect?
remind me.
So in the 1920s to the 1930s, a group of research analysts went into a company and they wanted to look at the effects of lighting on the effectiveness of employees. And so as they dim the lights and straighten the lights, they noticed that they said, oh no, the dimmer the light, the more impactful or the more effective these employees get. And when they left, it reverted back to the old same thing. And what happened was they improved in performance because they knew they were being observed. And so it was like
That's
a
it.
big brother thing that was coming about. What's so unique about nowadays is that it's not necessarily that is when you said that the cybersecurity crimes were number 3 on revenue generation, it's a whole different thing now. It's a whole different world out there. And just going to those emotions and such, how do you get, I know you look at medium and small sized businesses and such, how do you then teach the individuals? Because you offer those things there, but as an individual consumer, I know my mom's getting them. She's in her 80s and she's getting those bad boy emails. And then they're getting so good that I get ticked because they take the logo, they take everything like that.
Oh, yeah.
How do you get this information out to the consumer?
I don't know if I'm allowed to throw a shill for CyberHoot. Would that be all right?
Oh yeah,
Sure thing.
100%.
Everybody listening to this, it's free for individual usage. So if
Holy
your
moly.
mom needs to learn about 6 foundational 101 of cyber literacy, go to cyberhoot.com/individuals. And it's free. We give away our first 6 foundational videos that teach you about password hygiene, social engineering, using a password manager. I couldn't live and remember the 400 different accounts and passwords that I have today. How can anyone else? It's not possible. The human brain doesn't do that way. So you have to use a password manager, but you have to remember that one master password. And we go through all of this, as well as Wi-Fi security and just the 6 foundational topics that everyone needs to know. And we give it away. Plus, we give away our positive hoot fish exercise, which teaches you how to fish. Now, it's limited to those 7 things. If you like it, and you think your company could benefit, our hope is you would bring it to your IT director or your leadership team and say, why are we punishing our team members with these negative reinforcement things? I
Yes.
just did this positive stuff. It was really realistic. Like I failed the Netflix. I didn't see the I was missing. And I'm tired of seeing the hackersareus.com emails because I know that's not how hackers hack. So we need to do something more realistic. We give it away for free. That's our loss leader, if you will. It brings you into the grocery store to get other things, right? And you spend 300 bucks. That's the hope. But it is there. On the other front, you asked about mothers and parents and stuff. My own mom has called me up more than once to say, I shouldn't do this because people will now target her, but people I know have said, I gave my credit card away to a Microsoft support person who called me saying I had a virus. Oh my God. You told me not to do that, but I couldn't help myself. It was so convincing. Now what do I do? Call the bank, cancel the card. Da, da. Anyways, I don't know. I don't know what to say about an elderly population that never grew up with computers. It's really hard. It's really
Before it
Just
was easy to just say, hey, if someone's saying that they're John Smith with an Indian accent, probably not a valid person. But now it's getting to the point where with AI, with everything else, you can make a very compelling individual. And that is scary, man. That
Can I
is,
can I give you another PSA, a public service announcement?
oh yeah.
Anyone listening to this, you should establish a family safe word for any sort of deep fake attack because if all of our kids and even my generation are on social media doing videos or doing anything, and with 13 seconds or even 5 seconds of my voice and
Yeah.
my visage, a deep fake can call someone up and say to my mother, hey, it's your son calling, and I've been abducted by blah, and they're going to kill me if you don't give $10,000 in cash or do this or do a payment of some kind. And it is so realistic and it's real time. Like they can ask questions. What they can't do is answer the question, what's our family safe word? So it's time for you to set up a safe word with your family members, just so that in any kind of this kind of situation, you have an out where you can challenge the caller and say, listen, my son's a cybersecurity professional. We have a safe word in our family. If you can't tell me it, I know you're
You're full of
BSing me.
crap.
So
That's almost like multi-factor authentication too. I've actually established that with family members to say a safe icon. So on your phone, you have emojis and you can have a safe icon like a fire truck or something so that if you're conversing with a hacker, they can't produce that unless they guess really good among all the emojis.
mhm,
And
right.
so I think it's just a concept of rule following. A lot of the people before computers would follow rules by authority. And if somebody is very convincing, and that's where we have the psychology background, very convincing, compelling, having a lot of information using AI. By the way, is there really a fraud GPT? Because I heard you say there was a fraud GPT earlier. I want to know about
Yeah.
that. But anyway, if they're really convincing, they're just rule following. And so they're doing what somebody's told them to do. When now in reality, with computer technology, with AI, with all of these other things, you have to think that other person is not, they're not in the same room with you. So just think they're a fraud from the beginning unless you can validate who they are.
That's exactly right. You and the simplest thing you could teach is to hang up and say, I'll call you back and I'll look up the number of your company. Just tell me where you're at and I'll call it. Because if they're in a remote data, like the beekeeper was accurate, Maurice,
Uh-huh.
with actual rooms full of people promoting fraud over the telephone and email and internet systems all over the world. These exist. Now, I hope to think there's not as many of those in the United States proper. So any phone call back would have to be,
Yeah.
move through international phone calls. But yeah, so that's real difficult. It's
Yeah.
hard to tell. But the safe word, the safe icon, great idea. I heard another attack recently that really made me sad and a little
Mm.
depressed. There are people out there because you've all gotten SMS messages recently, right?
Oh,
With pay your
yes.
tolls and all
Lots.
Certainly.
that. The
Yep.
SMS attacks
Yep.
are up and up. You know what they've done on that front? They've taken it one step further. They've gotten Eric's phone or your parents' phone and said, here's a violent image of guns or a horrific mutilated body and saying, this could be you if you don't pay ransom to me. We know who you are. We know where you live. We're going to do this to you. So they're using extortion
Yeah.
imagery to scare the crap out of people because our phones are out there.
Yeah.
And who wouldn't be very scared with some horrible image sent to your phone saying this could be you if you don't pay a ransom to us?
What's scary about that, Craig, is we as consumers of social media put so much information out there. I do self-defense seminars
Oh,
for
wonderful.
youth and for women's groups. And one of the things that I'll do is I'll before I go there, I'll ask for a roster and I'll just go, let's see who has a social media. I can't believe the stuff people put out there. I
I know.
really can't.
It's
And it makes it so much easier to go over to that. So what really freaks them out is I'll go in there and I'll go, hey, how you doing? I'll just let Julie, how you doing, Julie? Hey, good to see you over at your kids tracked me other day. I was talking to your mom and dad, and yeah, Bob and Judy over here, blah blah blah. They're crying, man. They don't know me. But the thing
right.
is that info is out there and it is scary, man.
For
It
anyone in the world to see. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, blows
Yeah.
my mind. So
Social
anyway,
engineering is big. I think there's classes in college on social engineering now, which is pretty interesting because the psychology of it, there's a lot of that, and then just using technology. And like you said, the availability of things, people can just harvest that, put it together, and build a story, and then change the story, have some truths and some non-truths.
It's a best practice to research your audience, right? What you did, Maurice, makes sense. I got a job offer once because I looked up the person interviewing me and I saw on social media, it was on Twitter or X, he said he was complaining about his vet bill because he had a sick dog the weekend before. And I said, I came in there and the first thing I said, hey, how is your dog? Is everything okay? And he was like, oh my God, how did you know? Well, you
yeah.
put it out there on social media. So now I know I did my homework. And it's amazing. That kind of thing is useful in sales. It's useful in relationship building. It's useful in good ways.
Yep.
But oh my God, can it ever be abused when the entire world knows what your favorite sports and pastimes and are? Your social engineering spear phishing attacks are going to be amazing against you because it takes your suspicion away when
Yeah.
you're a golf fanatic and you get an email saying the latest driver is 33% off if you click this link. Oh my God, golfers would go, I got to get that.
Yeah, on sunglasses all the time. I can't believe how many friends have sent me Ray-Ban sunglasses for 75% off. Yeah, it's not gonna happen, man.
Craig, I want to know, so CyberHoot, certainly everybody should be checking this out. I'm thinking
Yeah.
even in government, prime contractors, subcontractors, maybe you're already working with government, but I guess my question is, what are the industries that you're really targeting right now,
Mhm.
and what potential industries could be really on your radar?
So thank you for asking that because we give 50% off of our direct for-profit pricing to governments, educational institutions, nonprofits, and charities. So if you request pricing from us, we'll send it to you, but know that we give 50% off for all four entities because they don't have deep budgets and it's getting worse with our current administration cutting budgets back in different ways. So I want to first say that. Secondly, I want to say that any company that operates computers and email and internet access needs our solution and needs it desperately because they're still focused most enterprises are still on the negative pitting employees against IT departments because of the fake no notice email testing, which doesn't work. There's empirical research, by the way, to support what I'm suggesting. There's a
Yeah.
study out of the University of Switzerland in 2020. It studied 14,000 study participants over 20 months, and it sent them all fake email phish testing to get them primed and then measure how they did after the study. But after the priming was done, they sent them some other fake emails to see how many clicked. Did you know their conclusion was, surprisingly, not to me, but surprisingly to the study authors, that the individuals that had gone through this program of fake email phish testing clicked more often on future fake email phishes, real ones, than less often. And when you tease it out, it's because they're using simplified domain names for the sender that are
Mm.
obviously wrong, and people get overconfident in their abilities. And so the realism is off, and it's just surprisingly it exists. Here's another inside scoop. I have 4 universities right now studying CyberHoot because they knew they're cybersecurity researchers. This is in the US. They've got IRB approved, which is internal review board that says, yeah, what you're about to do makes sense and it's approved. They're studying the affect and the effect of our hootfish because they believe the anecdotal evidence that people are less anxious, they're more confident, and they're more effective at spotting phishing attacks when they're realistic, when every person in your company has to do the examination, the phishing simulation, as opposed to when you send fake emails, you only have 50% of the users in your company open the email, so you get a pass or a fail. And the other 50%, you don't know what they did. They did nothing, essentially got no training, no benefit, nothing. At the end of the day, our target, our ICP or ideal customer profile is everyone. Anyone that wants to stop punishing employees and start rewarding them for doing the right thing and teaching them the right skills. And we have very competitive pricing rates for all of that stuff, depending on the size of your organization. We'll work with anybody. And we're
So
looking for
quick,
partnerships too.
That's
very
awesome.
good. Quick follow-up to that. Do you have anything targeting executives? Because that was one of the things that I saw. One thing, I guess, a scenario I worked at the largest computer company in the world about 10 years ago, and
Okay.
for federal authorization, there had to be some phishing testing, and the executives didn't like it. And so
Yeah.
we found out, okay, they've got their own team that actually does that. But it's very important because they do have credentials that allow them to see a lot of things like forward-thinking plans in the future, a lot of
Uh-huh. Yes,
financials
they
and
do.
other things. And I know that there's some really good companies out there that do executive protection. That's their bread and butter, basically. So in the realm of phishing, do you have things that are really for those executive type of accounts for testing?
It is. There's a social engineering answer to your question, and then there's a practical answer. The fact that we force every last employee to do the assignment, to go through that exercise and know the correct way to understand an email from the sender to the subject to the greeting to the spelling to the emotionality to the links and the attachments, every executive is going to do that because we remind over and over. And if you don't do it, guess what we do? We tell the executive's owner or the boss or the board, right? We escalate up the chain until everyone does it. So that's the first thing, because most CEOs, CFOs are overwhelmed by email. They're the very targets that are in that 50%. I didn't even see it because my secretary reads, scans my emails and sends me what I need to do. It's too busy. They can't. So in our case, they're actually having to do it. So that's the first step, right? The second is the social engineering of the CEO sent the email to an employee, and I'm pretending to be the CEO of this defense contractor, and I want you to buy gift cards. I have an origin story. I'll just scroll over here. $26,000 in $100 gift cards are here
Oh,
in
nice.
my hands from a CEO impersonation email that said to a new employee at a company, I'm the CEO. I want you to go buy as many gift cards, scratch off the backs and send me pictures because we're going to give them away as gifts. $26,000 later because the person had no idea what was in these cards. What was who, it was coming from outside
Unreal,
from
man.
outside the internet.
We,
And it was an impersonation attack. So, like, when you look at the strategy, there's trust, there's wanting to do good, there's not disappointing the CEO of the company, CFO, or the person, my boss, who sent this fraudulent email. But again, to your earlier point, I just got hired at this company. I'm
Yeah.
starting today. I'm so excited. What does
Yeah.
that invite? People to
Yeah.
impersonate leadership to get you to do stuff.
We
Yeah.
talked about that in one of the early episodes of the scenario with the Steam gift cards, and they knew someone's schedule that they were going to be speaking, and so they sent an urgent email to one of the admins to go purchase these Steam cards and send them because they knew their schedule. They were able to look onto their calendar and figure it out, so they timed it just right. And so really, if you put a lot of these pieces together as the attacker, they can be able to then have a prime time window to be able to target these people. Yeah, it's very interesting how they put these attacks together.
It is.
You're
I mean,
absolutely right.
with everything that's available out there, again, not just social media, but you think of Zoom Info, HubSpot, all those things. All you have to do is get a membership, and all of a sudden you have access to everyone's email, or someone that's a one-off. It's bananas. Heck, even
Mhm.
LinkedIn on the right, the whatever the gold thing about is. I don't use that,
Mhm.
but
Here's an attack I did a research on about a month ago. A high-profile executive was subscribed to about 100 mailing lists. His inbox went from 200, 300 messages a day to 1,000.
oh my
And
gosh.
and he said, okay, I gotta unsubscribe from these things. I gotta get clean up my inbox. So he was marking things spam. He was clicking unsubscribe links when it looked safe. Well, one of those unsubscribe links was booby trapped with a evil proxy token thieving or token stealing attack website. So basically, when
Oh,
you click any link, it can divert you through a website that impersonates the ultimate destination, and you might provide credentials to it because you need to, or actually no, in this particular case that's not the ruse. It reaches into your computer and it says give me the active token to your email and to your bank if it's available from your cookies table. Now you can, as a coding developer of a web application, you can prevent that, but most companies aren't doing that. It's not,
no.
there's not a lot of security around cookie and token session tokens that as there should be. And I received a call that said, Craig, I just was told that someone's sending emails from my account, and my bank called me to say someone's trying to transfer money, but they didn't have the MFA code to authorize it. So they think there's been a breach because it's not in my region of the world. It's like somewhere else logged in.
Oh
How
my
did this happen? And I come to find out he had been subscribed to all these mailing lists. He unsubscribed from one that was booby trapped, right?
oh
Or
my
was a malicious
gosh.
link, but it looked like the legitimate, it was embedded. Everything else looked great. It was embedded at the bottom of the email, like in the typical unsubscribe area. My thinking and my advice to anyone listening is this: never ever unsubscribe from things. If you did not sign up for it, click spam because it drops their domain rating. It lowers the likelihood of their emails being delivered to anyone else, and it blocks it from ever coming to you again. So the
Oh,
spam in most platforms will say, I never want to see another email from this domain, and I want to give them a bad mark. That's the
that's
most legitimate thing, because otherwise, legitimately, newsletters exist for a reason. We have one at CyberHoot, but you don't get subscribed to it unless you click the I want this email that gets sent to you right after putting in your email address.
that's
Great
That's the
advice to the
legitimate.
listeners. That's excellent. Thank you
oh.
for that.
Craig,
You're
I'm
welcome.
telling you this, I think there might have to be a part two to this because this has been so
Yes.
fascinating to hear it. It's a completely different take on cybersecurity that I've listened to because typically as we're talking about NIST, we're talking about this and that. This is one of those freak out interviews. So I would hope that you would be open to something down the future there.
More than happy to. Maurice, I don't want anybody listening to this to say, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. Every one of these problems has a simple solution. This is not rocket science for anyone listening to this. Don't worry about it too much, but you do have to take an active participatory role in your own cyber literacy skills. You have to learn how phishing works. You have to adopt a password manager. You have to adopt, here's another one, passkeys, even better than MFA. So if you said, oh, I got MFA on my bank, well, your bank supports passkeys, switch. Go use MFA or use one of these. I'm just pulling it out. Use a hand token that you can press a button on, and that's a physical secondary authentication. But passkeys are cryptographically signed to the website they're on. So what does that mean? No one can steal it and use it anywhere else.
That's
So now
awesome.
it's similar to a unique password everywhere you go. Put that
Wow.
Very
back
good.
in.
So
Well,
Craig, I just want to know for the listeners too, on cyberhoot.com, do you have those different prioritized bullets that you just talked about?
We do it through the videos that I give away. So we give away
Perfect.
CyberHoot for free if you go to cyberhoot.com/individuals, you can take our foundational 101 and a Hootfish phishing simulation that is that positive, educational, realistic phishing exercise, teaches you how to fish for free. And our hope is if you liked it, you would bring it into your company if you're in leadership position, or bring it to your IT director, your C-suite if you're not, to say there is a better way, everyone. Stop faking us out with these nasty emails that don't teach me anything and don't catch half the team. Do something where everyone has to do it and everyone learns confident, efficient, secure processing of email. Yeah, so
Awesome.
that's there.
I,
Or
I
you can reach out to sales@cyberhoot.com if you want more information. We will schedule a demo. We can give you free 30-day access, anything that you want.
That's very good. Yeah, again, just to reiterate, this is huge for a first line of defense for companies because this is one of the biggest things. A lot of times when there's penetration testing, it's assumed somebody's going to get phished, so they just skip that because a lot of organizations, it's that easy to phish an account. And so if you have the diligence up front with the users that they are getting better at this, that they get that practice, I think that's a big first line of defense to help companies. That's perfect.
With that, Craig, I just want to thank you for your time, and let's definitely stay in contact and set up another interview. Does that work?
It does. This is the greatest job in the world. I didn't feel like anything we talked about was work. This was all just a wonderful exchange of ideas. Thank you for the great interview, the great questions. And I hope that anyone listening to this learned a little bit about cyber literacy and avoids, if we can save just one person from a nasty, drawn out compromise of their personal information, their life, fantastic. I feel like we're doing a good thing.